this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Okay, I have a funny-ish story to launch off the idea of this video. When I was doing my undergrad at Tyndale, I couldn't afford a laptop, and laptops were pretty scarce back then anyways. That's how old I'm getting. But what I could afford was a Brother typewriter, except it was a cool typewriter because it had this flip up screen, and I was able to see 3 lines of text on it, and that was it. So that's how I used to write all of my papers. In the very last week of my first semester, I brought my big old typewriter to school with me on a 2-hour bus ride on the TTC to get there. And as I was walking with my typewriter into the library at school to continue working on my final papers at the end of that semester, what happened is some clown and his friend are dashing out of the library, and they crash into me and they knock my typewriter out of my hands. And do you remember floppy disks? Not like the big ones, but the little floppy disks, the hard floppy disks, not the weak ones. Anyways, it came out of the typewriter and they stepped on it and squashed it. And that had all of my, so I had 5 courses, and that had all of my 5 final papers on it. And they were irretrievable. Thankfully, it didn't break the typewriter. It still feels funny saying typewriter, but it did smash the disk. So as disheartened as I was, I got home, and I think I did 4 or 5, pretty close to 4 or 5 all-nighters. I was staying up the whole night trying to get these 5 papers done again, because they were due like just in a few days. I remember on, I think it was the very last night, and then the next day was the due date. It was about 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'm sitting on my bed. I've still got, like, I'm only halfway done the last paper, and I'm still kind of plowing at it. And I remember saying I could just, or thinking to myself that I could just lay my head down on my bed and just sleep, right? And just hand it in late or something. I had this vision of myself, and I was really tired. I was going on 4 or 5 all-nighters. I was really tired. I got this vision of myself that I could either plow through this, finish it, and the kind of person that I would be for the rest of my life was the kind of person that would always stick to it, stay on task, and not give up. Or I could go to sleep then, which meant that the kind of person I would be for the rest of my life was somebody who would just go to sleep, that wouldn't care about meeting deadlines, wouldn't be goal-oriented, and would just kind of be slothful. And this was some kind of fever dream or something, okay? This is like 4 or 5 nights without sleep. But I remember choosing the person that I wanted to be. I was at the point of wanting to give up. And this is now where I'm going to make the connection to what I want to talk about in the video. I was at the point of totally giving up and abandoning my whole first semester marks right at like 2, 3 a.m., something like that, 4 or 5 all-nighters into this. Can't really remember all that clearly because I was tired, I guess. And I remember choosing the self that I wanted to become. Okay, enough about me. Now, how about you? Can you think of a time, any time in your life at any age at all, that was very, very challenging for you, and you were on the brink of giving up, but you didn't? Something rose up inside of you. You had this idea, you muscled up with your emotions, whatever that is, and you look back on it now and you said, I'm so thankful I didn't give up, but I chose to continue to carry on. And I'm so thankful that's behind me, but I'm so thankful that I chose not to give up. Okay, so if you have a story like that and you're watching with somebody, would you please pause the video, share that story, and as you're sharing that story, tell that person what it was that helped you not give up and continue to move forward instead. Here's the thing about those big moments that make us feel like giving up. They happen more than once. For some of us, they happen quite a lot. We are faced with, I don't know, continuing sickness, work stress, school stress, relationship stress, you name it. Like, there is no end of stressful moments. And at any moment during any of those stressors, we can come to the point of wanting to give up, especially when life begins to keep on piling on and we begin to feel overwhelmed, like David does in the psalm we're about to look at, Psalm chapter 22. We can feel overwhelmed like Jesus did when he quoted Psalm chapter 22 when he was on the cross. You're not alone. If you feel like you're giving up, or have you ever felt like you're giving up because life is just so overwhelming, you are not alone. King David in the Old Testament was at that point. Jesus on the cross was at that point when he quotes Psalm 22. It's a common kind of thing. How do we get through those moments when we feel like quitting and life is completely overwhelming us? How do we get through those moments and keep on going? This video is based on my interpretation of Psalm chapter 22. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? I am scorned and despised by all. Everyone who sees me mocks me. They sneer and shake their heads, saying, "Is this the one who relies on the Lord? Then let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him." The poor will eat and be satisfied. All who seek the Lord will praise him. Their hearts will rejoice with everlasting joy. The whole earth will acknowledge the Lord and return to him. All the families of the nations will bow down before him.
Hey kids, don't forget to look in the background for all the cool characters. And don't forget to watch this week's episode of Connect HQ. See ya!
Here's a direction that I'd like to take in this video around my interpretation of this psalm and how to make it relevant to you. I think the psalm is teaching us something about how to resist giving up. I've got two thoughts around this to encourage you if you're in a moment that's really pressing you. I want to look at our emotions and how we feel them and how we process them, because our emotions can make some things out to be a very, very bigger deal, and our emotions can play around with us to the point where it brings us that moment where we do feel like giving up. And then I want to talk a little bit about how to see ourselves in a new light in the future in a way that motivates us to keep on moving forward. Let's start here with the first point. God doesn't abandon you. The text says, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help?" When I was totally alone, with no help, with very few resources, I totally felt abandoned. I look back on it now and I know that it was totally catastrophizing, right? And I was just tired. Life is so much harder and more complicated than back then when I was writing my papers. But man, I felt in that moment totally alone. And I felt that those two visions that were before me were totally true. Now, King David is the guy who's writing this psalm. He also felt totally alone. He felt abandoned. He felt forsaken. He felt that God wasn't even listening. And then we have Jesus quoting this psalm while he's on the cross. Literally, the weight of the world was hanging on his shoulders. Now, here's something that we know for sure. Okay, this is what all of the evidence is saying is actually true. God hadn't abandoned anyone. The evidence that we see in the Bible, in other places in the Bible, tells us, so we know for sure, that God doesn't abandon anyone. Didn't abandon David. The Father didn't abandon the Son on the cross. And God didn't abandon me when I was going to Tyndale to become a pastor. And God doesn't abandon you. God has never abandoned anyone. However, the pain is real. The feelings are real. It's okay to feel the feels. It's okay to acknowledge the pain. Psalms aren't concerned about getting all the facts right. They're concerned about getting the emotions right and the experiences right. They're concerned about making their big point, even if the real world details are a little fuzzy and even outright wrong. Sometimes we can feel alone, like God doesn't hear us, like he's forsaken us, abandoned us, and left us to fend for ourselves. And our feelings are not always true. What happens is that we feel our feelings so deeply, and our feelings then begin to influence our beliefs, and they skew our perception of reality. And so we begin to catastrophize, over-feeling our feelings and letting them influence what we're thinking. And then we stress ourselves out so much we begin to catastrophize, and then we skew what reality actually is. In those moments, we need to be looking for what's actually real? What evidence is there that my emotions that are telling me what reality actually is, what evidence is there that this is actually true? Our feelings are real and they're honest, but sometimes they get the better of us, and sometimes they make us believe things that are not true. Is it true that the Father abandoned the Son on the cross? No! There's only one God. Although he's three persons, and although the Trinity is pretty complicated, he's still just one God. Did God abandon David? No. He was there for David right up until his deathbed, and then oversaw the events that led to Solomon, his son, taking the throne after him, even with all the turmoil that surrounded that. Did God abandon me while I was doing my undergrad to become a pastor? No. Good grief, I was doing an undergrad to become a pastor, for crying out loud. That doesn't even make any sense. Our emotions are our emotions. They're real, they're honest, but sometimes, or maybe more than sometimes, they skew how we see reality. And sometimes we follow our emotions so deeply that we begin to catastrophize and we begin to imagine that things are worse than they actually are. Sometimes our emotions tell us what reality is without any evidence to back it up. Your emotions are your emotions, and they're real and they're honest, but they don't always reflect the actual truth. So when we're catastrophizing, when we're feeling those emotions, take a pause and begin to actually look for the evidence if your emotions are true. When we're on the verge of giving up and our emotions aren't helping us see how things really are, what is something we can hold on to get us leaning into the painful moment and keep us moving forward without giving up? Here it is, the second point. God has a better future in mind. Here's what the text says. The whole earth will acknowledge the Lord and return to him. Jesus quotes this psalm while he's on the cross, which means it's a point of reference that he's giving to his listeners and giving to us to share a glimpse of how he's feeling and share a glimpse of what he's thinking about. And man, this psalm even has all the details, like the detail of the guards casting lots for the garments that he has right at the foot of the cross. In this psalm, we see the vision of the future that God wants. In the psalm is the reason why we have the first prophecy about Jesus in Genesis 3:15. It's the summary of the letter of Revelation. This verse is who Jesus wants to be and the future that he wanted to have. Jesus fulfills his role on the cross because of who he wants to be in the future and what he wants his relationship with humanity to be. He didn't just want to forgive everyone. He wanted to reconcile everyone to himself. Why did he stay on the cross? Because he had the focus on the future that he wanted, and the future was worth the pain. I mean, the text says, their hearts will rejoice with everlasting joy. The whole earth will acknowledge the Lord and return to him. This is the man that Jesus wanted to be. He wanted to be the man that saved the world. God wanted to be the man that reconciled all humanity back to himself. That kept him on the cross enduring the pain. That kept him in the moment so that he didn't give up. What about you? What kind of person do you want to be? What is the better picture of you that you are aiming toward? Because it's not God's plan for you to stay stuck. It's not God's plan for you to give up and feel sorry for yourself and only find your purpose in the past. God has a wonderful future for you. What do you think God is bringing you toward? Okay, let me just summarize this video right here. When we discuss Psalm 22, we're really going to dig into it a little bit and talk about really what Jesus' experience was on the cross and look ahead to Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday. We're gonna explore it a little bit more. So just for the purpose of the video right here, let me just wrap this up by saying this. How do you resist giving up? Well, the first point is, check your emotions. Your emotions are real, they're true, but they might be skewing your reality. So do a facts check. Are your emotions adequately reflecting the facts that are around you? And then also choose the person you want to be. God's got a great future for you. This is not your final moment. This is not the last thing you have to say. If you're in this moment right now that's overwhelming you and you feel like giving up, there's way more to your life than this. There is a next step. There is a future. There's a next chapter in your life. Where are you going? Who's the person that you want to be? Continue to look forward to where God is bringing you. Continue to look forward to all the growth there is left of you as you move closer to relationships with other people and relationships with God and all of the other growth areas in your life. Continue to look forward. That's what Jesus did on the cross. While he was on the cross, he was looking into the future where you and I would be reconciled to God for all eternity. And that future kept him on the cross. He knew the man he wanted to be. God wanted to be the man that reconciled all the world to himself. That future is what kept Jesus on the cross. Look at your future. Check your emotions, look at your future, and let your future motivate you not to give up, but to continue moving forward because God has so much more for you. That's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you please ask for the link? I'd love to have you join us in our discussion on Sundays. Right now, we've got a Sunday morning, we've got a Sunday evening, so reach out if you'd like the Zoom link, because we're still meeting on Zoom. That would be awesome. Also, if you'd like to support For Community, you can find the link to support us down in the show notes. For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time.